I'm not a socialist, and I don't associate myself with what he has said about the Jewish people.
Our nominee is going to have to convince folks that he is prepared to aggressively address the rise in anti-Semitism in the city of New York.
What specifically has Mamdani said that you think is anti-Semitic?
Pro-Hamas.
But when you hear things like intifada, when you hear things like jihad, when you hear from the river to the sea, it is received as slaughter the Jews and destroy Israel, period.
Do you support the nominee Zohran Mamdani in his race for mayor now?
I have not endorsed the assemblyman.
Rather than uniting behind Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Party's nominee for New York City's mayoral race, a lot of Democrats, as you saw, are refusing to endorse him, and some are going out of their way to slander him because, let's face it, they're either xenophobic or Islamophobic or both. And since he's condemned Israel's genocide of Palestinians, he's been accused of anti-Semitism by pro-genocide Democrats paid by AIPAC to be complicit with Israel's crimes against humanity. And the same Democrats accusing him of anti-Semitism, like Eric Swalwell, Hakeem Jeffries, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Richie Torres, they're not even Jewish. Ironically, some of Mamdani's most prominent surrogates are Jewish, including Brad Lander and Bernie Sanders, who endorsed him and encouraged Democrats to unite behind him after the primary was over. For example, Bernie Sanders says on Twitter, "Democratic Party leaders, you have talked for 6 months about the need to create political excitement to get working class and young people involved in the political process. That's exactly what Zohran did. Get behind him." Now, Bernie is right, as this graphic demonstrates. It's from the New York Times, and it was shared by Umish Voter, and it shows how Mamdani breathed new life into the party by galvanizing young people. The party was disproportionately made up of older people, but now you can see that that dynamic has completely flipped. But I guess that vote blue no matter who goes out the window when it's a progressive who wins a primary. And the fact that Bernie Sanders, an independent, even had to tell Democratic Party leaders, especially ones from New York, to get behind someone who just won their primary is a slap in the face to every Democratic voter who begrudgingly voted for the lesser of two evils in election after election after election. And you think that Democrats would be eager to get rid of the corrupt incumbent mayor who is Trump's puppet, Eric Adams, but apparently not, because the governor of New York and the leader of the state Democratic Party, Kathy Hochul, declined to endorse him, saying that she needs to have more conversations with him about some of his positions first. Also, House Democratic Party leader Hakeem Jeffries, also from New York, refused to endorse Mamdani as well, saying that they don't know each other well and haven't had any substantive conversations yet. Okay, and while the leader of Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer, defended him from racist right-wing attacks, he wouldn't say if he had any plans at all to endorse him. So in case you weren't keeping track, when a centrist Democrat wins a primary, shut the fuck up and fall in line. When a progressive wins a primary, however, fuck you, we're not falling in line. In fact, we're exploring other options. The contempt that this party has for their own base is truly astounding to me. Zohran Mamdani is bringing young people back into the party after Democrats drove them away by being out of touch. And rather than thanking him and trying to jump on the bandwagon, they're distancing themselves from him. Some are even attacking him, which just demonstrates that they'd rather lose than win with him. And part of that really is because they've been bought off by a foreign government who views Mamdani as an adversary. And if you weren't sure which government I'm talking about, of course, I'll give you a hint.
We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel.
Yeah. And I've got to say, as bad as money in politics is, foreign lobbying in particular has gotten out of control. We've now had 2 countries in the last 10 years effectively buy complicity from our politicians for their genocides. First, it was Saudi Arabia's genocide of Yemen, and now it's Israel's genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza. But to be clear, leadership's reluctance to support Mamdani goes deeper than foreign lobbying in Israel. They're also against him for the same reason why they were against Bernie Sanders, because he's a progressive. And if he raises the bar and shows voters what's possible, then the rest of the party would be expected by the base to deliver in the same way, which would conflict with what their donors want. Having said that, cynically dismissing him as an anti-Semite because he thinks genocide is bad, that's their way of scaring voters into not even considering his policy. So it's useful, and it's also, something that they're doing at the behest of their donors in the Israel lobby. But that strategy has already failed spectacularly, and it arguably backfired because people sensed that bad faith allegations of anti-Semitism were being weaponized for political purposes, and some prominent Jewish people felt like that was actually offensive, including Ezra Klein, who's no ideological ally to Mamdani, by the way, but even he said that he chose to not rank Cuomo because, quote, "I'm a Jewish person. I have very deep feelings about what is happening in Israel and Gaza. I found it so cynical and so repulsive. It was just such a vicious way to weaponize Mamdani's ethnicity." And Brad Lander, a Jewish Democrat who endorsed Mamdani, echoed that same sentiment, saying that it was offensive to treat Jewish people as political pawns.
As the highest ranking Jew in New York, I'm sure you've been hearing quite a bit from your fellow Jews about concerns that they have about Mamdani, such as he seems to not believe that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state. What do you tell your Jewish friends and constituents?
Yeah, and I take it real seriously. I'm a proud Jewish New Yorker. I'm, raising 2 Jewish kids in New York City. I'm very anxious about the rise of anti-Semitism, and I want a mayor who will keep Jews and all New Yorkers safe. And I would not be supporting Zohran Mamdani if I wasn't confident that he would. I don't agree with him 100% on Israel and Palestine. We're not running, though, for foreign policy. We're running for the city of New York. And he is deeply committed to not just increasing protection against hate crimes, but against anti-Semitism, increasing by 800% what is spent on making sure that all Jews and all New Yorkers are safe to pray, to worship, to travel, to work, to walk around their neighborhoods free from fear. And I'm confident people will see that as they focus on the race. Meanwhile, you have these other folks who are trying to weaponize anti-Semitism like Donald Trump did in his tweet attacking Zohran, in which, again, he called Chuck Schumer a Palestinian. These are offensive. It's like treating Jews as pawns for political purposes, and it's gross bigotry. And New Yorkers are going to show, just like they did in the primary, that we're better than that.
It's crazy to me that it's supposedly controversial that Mamdani doesn't think countries should be ethno-states, and that equal rights for all in Israel is apparently scary, I guess. Like, imagine telling an anti-racist that they don't want America to exist because they want to abolish Jim Crow, and that their call for equality is tantamount to calls for violence against whites, or a call to abolish the United States altogether because they want to get rid of Jim Crow. Like, it is so absurd. Abolishing systems of oppression is good, actually, and I feel like that shouldn't be controversial, especially if you're a Democrat. But as good of a point as Brad Lander made there, he unfortunately had to repeat himself and say all of that again, since Jake Tapper went on to ask another question about the same subject and, I guess, disregard everything that Brad Lander said. It all went in one ear and out the other. And this goes without saying, but Bernie Sanders, Ezra Klein, and Brad Lander, they're only 3 Jewish men, and of course they're not representative of the totality of Jewish people, but as prominent Jewish people, I think that their voices are important, especially when their voices are being erased by so many bad faith actors who aren't Jewish, who are monopolizing discourse here, not because they care about anti-Semitism, but because they're trying to use anti-Semitism to shut down criticism of a country that they're paid to support. And even though certain politicians are desperately trying to slander Mamdani as some savage Jew-hating Muslim, the truth is that he is not anti-Semitic. He never actually said that he wanted to globalize the Intifada, and he never expressed support for Hamas. The people saying he said these things are lying. And to show you what I mean, I want to show you one more clip from that Eric Adams interview where he failed to give one single example of Mamdani's supposed anti-Semitism.
What specifically has Mamdani said that you think is anti-Semitic?
Pro-Hamas. Hamas is a dangerous terrorist organization that should be destroyed. When you embrace the philosophies of Hamas, not only what they do to their own people, but what they did in Gaza to lift them up and praise them, I think that's a clear indicator that something is wrong with that. But he has to
when did he praise Hamas? I don't recall him ever praising Hamas.
There's several videos, even during his days of being a rap artist, of praising Hamas and other terrorist groups. And so a little research, you'll be able to find it.
In other words, trust me, bro. Don't you think that if a video did exist of Zohran Mamdani explicitly saying he supports Hamas, Eric Adams would have already tweeted it out like 150,000 times? I mean, it doesn't matter because, like all Trumpian politicians, he's willing to lie to win. But what he did is somehow not as bad as what Kirsten Gillibrand did, who implied that Zohran Mamdani wants to go on a jihad against Jewish people, something that she said, by the way, after she was already told that he never actually said globalize the Intifada himself. He just wouldn't condemn activists saying it. Now, in an interview on Meet the Press, he explained why he's not condemning phrases that activists say.
You were recently asked about the term globalize the Intifada, if it makes you uncomfortable. In that moment, you did not condemn the phrase. Now, just so folks understand, it's a phrase that many people hear as a call to violence against Jews. There's been a lot of attention on this issue. So I want to give you an opportunity to respond here and now. Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And ultimately, that's what is the foundation of so much of my politics, the belief that freedom and justice and safety are things that, to have meaning, have to be applied to all people, and that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
But do you actually condemn it? I think that's the question and the outstanding issue that a number of people, both of the Jewish faith and beyond, have. Do you condemn that phase, globalize the Intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me, especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country and in our city. And I've heard those fears and I've had those conversations, and ultimately they are part and parcel of why in my campaign I've put forward a commitment to increase funding for anti-hate crime programming by 800%. I don't believe that the role of the mayor is to police speech in the manner especially of that of Donald Trump, who has put one New Yorker in jail who's just returned to his family, Mahmoud Khalil, for that very supposed crime of speech. Ultimately, what I think I need to show is the ability to not only talk about something, but to tackle it and to make clear that there's no room for anti-Semitism in this city. And we have to root out that bigotry. And ultimately, we do that through the actions. And that is the mayor I will be, one that protects Jewish New Yorkers and lives up to that commitment through the work that I do.
But quickly, for the people who care about the language and who feel really concerned by that phrase, why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president who is looking to do those very kinds of things, putting people in jail for writing an op-ed, putting them in jail for protesting. Ultimately, it's not language that I use. It's language I understand there are concerns about. And what I will do is showcase my vision for the city through my words and my actions.
Everything you said there is perfectly reasonable. But according to Kirsten Gillibrand, what he said there is tantamount to him saying he wants to go on a jihad against Jewish people. Listen, putting her obvious Islamophobia and racism aside, in the era of fascism that we're in, where people are literally being punished for political speech, we need politicians like him to make it clear that they're going to respect the First Amendment and not engage in speech policing, especially when there's no pro-Palestinian phrase that's not viewed as problematic or anti-Semitic. Some have tried to claim that Free Palestine is anti-Semitic or that wearing keffiyehs is anti-Semitic. It's all a distraction from the real issue, which is a genocide. And these politicians think that if they can turn activists into the real enemies, you won't look at how they're complicit with the genocide that they're funding. Now, just stop for a moment and consider how it would look if a Jewish politician was asked to condemn statements from Netanyahu or Smotrich or Ben-Gvir. It'd be nonsensical. But since Mamdani is a Muslim, he's expected to condemn anything that could even be spun as pro-Hamas, even if he hasn't said the thing they want him to condemn himself, because it's assumed that all Muslims are inherently violent until they prove otherwise. And this is the expectation for every Muslim lawmaker, by the way. That includes Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Keith Ellison. I mean, all of them have experienced the same exact attacks, because Islamophobia isn't just socially acceptable. It is a requirement in certain settings in America, especially in politics. So the people slandering Mamdani as anti-Semites, they're telling us more about themselves than they are about Mamdani. They are racist. But, as I said earlier, it's not just about Israel. Democrats are also reluctant to support him because if they do, the gravy train might be over. And I say this because Mamdani is at odds with the Democratic Party's real constituency, which is billionaires, which is undoubtedly why leadership is refusing to endorse him now.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Yeah. So as based as it is, this kind of rhetoric is unacceptable if you're a Democratic Party leader hoping to keep the gravy train rolling, because billionaires are demanding that Democrats keep the lid on the growing insurgency within the party that wants a more equitable distribution of wealth. And the growth of class consciousness within the Democratic Party is something that the rich has been worried about for a really long time now. For example, you may recall this clip from 2017 when Stephen Klubeck, a wealthy Democratic Party donor, threatened to cut them off if progressives didn't stop with the anti-rich rhetoric.
I've talked to Schumer. I've talked to Wyden. I've talked to Pelosi.
And said what?
And I said, if you use the term billion again, I'm done.
Why?
Because it's aspirational. I didn't start with anything. Just penalize everyone that's done well. We all want to do well. And we should be the party of doing well. We should be a party of business and leadership. And it is very, very disturbing when I hear the millionaire or billionaire word. And I've told them to stop it, knock it off. Because everyone wants to do really well. And this is the world of aspirations.
Then are you worried that the Democratic Party is going too far to the left?
So much so, it drives me nuts.
So that was basically a warning to Democratic Party leadership to crush the left, or he's done making the money printer go burr. And of course, they obliged him. And I'm sure that more billionaires are smarter and they don't go on TV to broadcast their commands to the politicians that they bought. Nonetheless, he was out in the open. And what he wants is what he's getting. What people in his income bracket want, they're getting it, right? As we've seen from the party. And as you all know, the Democratic Party very much wants rich people to keep donating to them, hence why Hakeem Jeffries prioritized mending the fence with Silicon Valley oligarchs before anyone else after the election. And it's also why DNC Chair Ken Martin explicitly said that the party will continue to graciously accept money from, quote, good billionaires, as if there are any. Zohran Mamdani is a threat to the party apparatus because they can't raise money like he does since they don't believe in anything. So voters don't want to give them their hard-earned cash. So without their billionaire donors, they're toast. Hence why they can't get on board with Mamdani's brand of politics, because he represents an existential threat to their donors, which is an existential threat to their careers by extension. But it's not just that Mamdani's against billionaires, he's also against the sick and perverted system that allowed them to exist in the first place.
Do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism.
I've got to say, we've come a long way since the days of Nancy Pelosi telling us we're just a capitalist party and that's the way it is. But regardless if you're a democratic socialist or a liberal centrist who loves capitalism, I think that if you vote with the Democratic Party, you should agree that stopping the puppet of Donald Trump, Eric Adams, is more important. He is compromised and he cannot represent the city. Therefore, in the interest of the common goal of defeating the Republican, which is Eric Adams in this case, it's important to heed Bernie Sanders' words and unite behind Zohran Mamdani and vote blue no matter who, because we shouldn't be fighting each other right now, Democrats. We should be fighting Trump. At least that's what they'd tell us if Cuomo won. So with no due respect to Democratic Party leadership, bend the knee. But listen, I am a forgiving person. I will put that out there. And, they don't have to endorse Mamdani with a smile on their face. They don't even have to stump for him. In fact, I'd prefer that they didn't do that. But they better fucking fall in line and endorse him. Because if they can't suck it up and vote for the lesser of two evils, then they shouldn't expect us to ever do the same ever again.